Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder how much control you really have over your learning in college or university? Like when you feel like you are just going through the motions, or when you are super engaged, what is really going on? This study dives deep into that feeling and finds out how much of it is actually in your hands and how much is shaped by your teachers and the courses themselves. So the big question this paper is trying to answer is basically this: what is student agency? How do we measure it? And how do all the different parts of it connect to each other? And to the way teachers teach, they wanted to move beyond just thinking about agency as whether a student is participating. They wanted to see it as a whole package involving the stuff students feel they have to help them learn, their will to learn and engage, and the actions they actually take. The researchers noticed that while everyone talks about student agency, we don't really have a clear, detailed picture of it. They felt like previous studies were too simple, maybe only looking at one piece of the puzzle, or not using solid methods. So they set out to create a more complete map of student agency. They laid out their own idea of what agency is. They see it as this capacity that is always changing. It's based on three main things your students perceive. First, their resources. This is like the tools and support they feel they have, like their own abilities, or help from teachers and friends, or even opportunities to influence things. Second, their stances, which is like their attitude or their willingness to really get involved, to keep trying even when things get tough. And third, their actions, which are the actual things they do, like setting goals, working with others, or sharing their ideas. They called their model the AUS-RSA Model, which stands for Agency of University Students, Resources, Stances, and Actions. They also looked at what kinds of teaching practices might help or hurt this agency. Based on other research, they thought things like clear course design, activities that make you think hard, and teachers who act more like guides than bosses might be important. So how did they test this? They gathered information from over 1,000 university students in 47 different courses in Finland. They asked these students to fill out surveys about how they felt about their learning, their resources, their willingness to engage, and their actions, all related to their specific courses. They also asked them about what they thought of their teachers' methods, like how clear the course was designed, what kind of learning activities they did, and what the teacher's role seemed to be. They used a special survey they developed called the AUS-RSA scale to measure all these different parts of student agency. It's pretty detailed, looking at 15 different aspects across resources, stances, and actions. The surveys were given towards the end of the courses, so students had a good feel for how things went. Now, for the results, what did they find? First off, the students overall reported pretty good levels of agency. They generally felt like they had resources, were willing to engage, and took action. Interestingly, students felt like there was a good power balance among themselves in their groups, and they really trusted their teachers for support. This is great, but on the flip side, active, impactful participation, that's like really putting your ideas out there and making a difference, that was the lowest rated part of agency. This suggests that while students feel safe and supported, they aren't always feeling empowered to actively shape their learning or discussions. This is a super important part. They did something called multi-level modeling. Think of it like this: are students' feelings about agency mostly about them as individuals, or are they shaped by the specific course they are in? They found that while individual differences matter, the course itself plays a significant role. This means that how much opportunity students felt they had for interactive learning varied a lot from one course to another. Some courses were great for talking and working together, while others weren't. Similar big differences between courses were seen for things like feeling heard and having an impact, and opportunities to develop new ways of thinking. This tells us the environment of the course really matters for these aspects of agency. They also found that the different parts of agency are connected. For instance, when students felt they had good resources, they were also more likely to have positive stances and take agentic actions. It's like all the pieces of the agency puzzle tend to line up together. Now, let's talk about teaching practices. This is where it gets really interesting for students and educators. They found that the kinds of learning activities teachers used made a big difference. Specifically, activities that made students think deeply, like problem solving or critically evaluating ideas, were linked to higher levels of agency. This includes feeling more competent, more supported by teachers, having more opportunities to interact, and feeling interested and motivated by the course. They also saw that even though students recognized opportunities for deep thinking, it didn't always lead to them actively participating. This suggests that just having challenging tasks isn't enough. Students need support to actually act on those challenges. When it came to interactive student collaboration, they found something a bit mixed. It was linked to more peer support, which makes sense, but surprisingly, it was linked to less trust in teacher support. This might suggest that when students are working a lot with each other, they might rely less on the teacher, or perhaps the teacher's role shifts in those collaborative settings. Course design transparency was also a big winner when teachers were clear about goals, how things would be taught, and how students would be evaluated. Students reported higher agency across the board. This was especially true when these design elements were talked about and agreed upon with students. Not just handed down, transparency seems to build trust and create more opportunities for interaction and feeling heard. And then there are the teacher roles. This was one of the most striking findings. When teachers were seen just as managers, just telling students what to do and checking if they did it, student agency was lower. But when teachers acted more like supervisors, paying attention to students' needs, or even better, as partners who worked with students to define goals and how to learn, student agency was significantly higher. This really highlights that how a teacher interacts and structures the learning environment can seriously boost or hinder a student's feeling of control and engagement. Now, every study has its limits, and it's important to mention them. This study used data collected at one point in time, so it shows correlations, meaning things happen together, but it can't definitively say that one thing causes the other. For example, we know clear course design is linked to higher agency, but we can't be 100% sure that a student with high agency doesn't then seek out courses with clear design. Also, they analyzed data from quite a few students, but the number of courses wasn't super high, which can sometimes make the results about course differences a bit less certain. More courses would make those between course findings even stronger. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? This study gives us a much more detailed and layered understanding of student agency. It's not just one thing, it's a mix of what students feel they have, their motivation and their actions. And importantly, it shows that our learning environments, especially university courses, play a huge role. The research strongly suggests that if universities and teachers want to foster student agency, they should focus on transparency in course design, using learning activities that really make students think, and stepping away from a purely managerial role to become more of a supervisor or partner. When teachers create these kinds of empowering conditions, students are more likely to feel they have agency, and that can lead to better learning and a more positive experience. It's a powerful reminder that teachers are not just delivering content, but actively shaping the very capacity of their students to learn and grow. This research really makes me think about how small changes in how a course is designed or how a teacher interacts can have a big impact on a student's experience and their ability to direct their own learning. It is not just about the student's personality. It is about the environment we create for them. What do you think about these findings? Do you see this in your own learning experiences? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, give us a like and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more deep dives into the fascinating world of psychology and human behavior. We'll catch you in the next one.